Next up is not only a courageous woman who just dropped the mic and moved to Puerto Rico, but a really good friend of mine. And I can't tell you how many times I've said to her, "Oh my God, girl, you're rocking it and you're going for it." And, and I think we all need to see women that are just out there and doing something new and, and going for it and being successful. So it's my pleasure to introduce Catherine Maria, and she's going to talk to us about Puerto Rico. Catherine.
Hello. Thank you, Deborah. It was so nice to see some of the REN women. And I just want to say that I really felt like REN carried me through the first couple months of COVID. I stayed home and I had nothing but the four walls in my backyard and joining the meetings. Major lightning and thunderstorm going on outside if you're hearing anything in the background. So it was really comforting to me. So thank you for having REN. Thank you for making it Zoom friendly right away and being able to be my support system through the first months of COVID. And after a few months, I decided I needed to change my life. And I ended up moving to Puerto Rico. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a little PowerPoint. But are you able to see my screen?
No.
Okay. Yeah, share screen. Share this one. It's my first time sharing a screen, so.
Okay, there we go. We gotcha.
Okay. All right, so let's see how I get myself over into the Okay, so I wanted to talk about why invest from a distance. You can leverage the high cost of living where you are and control properties that are in an area with a lower cost of living. So if you're in San Francisco, you're in LA, you're in Seattle, you're in New York, or Boston, somewhere with a high price of property, you can purchase somewhere where it's not as high priced and leverage that difference. Also diversify the geographic area where you hold your asset. I think Beth spoke to that a little bit. And it's also nice to think about maybe where you want to vacation or retire and having a property somewhere else because you might be flying there to visit it. So it's kind of nice to get to know the area and have a tax write-off to do so. Here's some things I thought about to consider if you're going to purchase a rental property like a rental house from somewhere that's too far away to drive to. You want to really look at the employment of the town. Is it diverse or is it a company town that mostly has just one employer? Also, if you can find a place where the average cost of property compared to the average rent, where you've got a kind of a low price of property and a high price of rent, that could be really valuable for you for cash flow. And really take a look at what people expect for the size of home. For instance, I have a house in Utah that's 5 bedrooms. In Utah, in Salt Lake City, there's large families. They really want a bigger property. Whereas maybe a studio or a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom in Los Angeles, where there are a lot more single people, might perform very well. So you don't want to get yourself a property where in the place you're going to, it doesn't really fit the expectation. Also growth. It's really great if you can be in a location where the population is growing and property is appreciating. You don't want to be in a place that's declining or shrinking. I think it's good to look at landlord business friendly aspects. So if you're going to a place that has rent control or is very restricted or has licenses and permits that are needed, it's going to be maybe more difficult to practice the real estate practice there. And then look at maybe some of the hidden fees. Go on Facebook, go looking around, talk to real estate agents. Are there taxes that maybe you don't know about or have to pay where you currently live? Are there utilities such as shoveling snow that maybe you don't have where you are? A lot of times you have to have a rental license, even if you just rent one home. So try to find out that information and look at the average leasing practices for getting your property leased up. In Florida, for instance, I found that 1 month rent was an average leasing fee, whereas other places, a half a month's rent or even having it provided inclusive in the property management, the 10% or what have you that you're paying. So check out those things. And most importantly, your management team can make or break you. Make sure you vet them carefully. They're going to be in control of one of your expensive assets, and check that out. Of course, I live in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, sorry, my phone's going off. I moved to Puerto Rico in November, so I decided to change my life. Why Puerto Rico? Well, it's a paradise. It's beautiful. It happens to be a U.S. territory. It's just 1,000 miles from Miami, which is a 2.5-hour flight. It has the only tropical rainforest in the U.S., and some of the women who are on this call were climbing up those waterfalls you see in the corner. It has 3 of the 5 of the world's bioluminescent bays. And San Juan, beautiful old San Juan, is the oldest city in the US. And Puerto Rico is America. You have access to the federal courts. Puerto Ricans are US citizens. You have the same title and property rights as in the mainland, the same currency, the US dollar. You don't need a passport if you're a US citizen. There's a military presence on the island. The cars drive on the same side of the road. If anyone's been in some of the places where the cars go a different direction, it can be very confusing. You have chain stores that you're used to. You're going to see a Home Depot, Costco, Walmart, IKEA, Krispy Kreme, most importantly. Puerto Rico is a U.S. tax haven, and that's brought a lot of people to the island. If you have a business, what was formerly Act 20, it's now under Act 60, you will pay just a 4% flat corporate tax. If you have something like a CPA practice, a lawyer practice, call center, something like this, where you export your services from Puerto Rico to the US mainland, you pay only 4% tax. And then the act that I'm using, which was called Act 22 before it's now also part of Act 60, I pay no tax on capital gains, interest, or dividends, including stocks, including crypto. And this is huge. It's brought a lot of crypto people to the island. It's brought a lot of people who are tired of paying taxes to California, to New York, to the IRS, to Puerto Rico to live in a tax-free haven. I love that Beth talked a little bit about tourism and hospitality. In the Caribbean, the average GDP percent for tourism is 15%. In the Bahamas, it's fully 60%. And yet Puerto Rico only has 7% of the GDP based in tourism. It's actually a little under 7%. And I like to compare it to Hawaii. So the population is roughly double that in Hawaii, but the distance to the mainland is roughly half. The flight time is less than half. And Hawaii has 3 times the amount of its GDP coming from tourism as Puerto Rico does. And the number of hotel rooms in Hawaii is 4 times the amount as in Puerto Rico. So we have a long way to go to catch up. And I think it's nothing but up from here. The hospitality, there's something that they changed in the code to convert Puerto Rico into a tourist destination. And that was done less than 10 years ago. It was called Act 74. It's now part of Act 60. And it gives you in either 30 or 40% of your total project cost back in your pocket as a tax credit. And in the bottom right corner, you see the surfing turtle. For those of you who were here in town, you may have met Robbie Krager. He's going to be my speaker this month at the REIA. He bought this property a year ago. He rehabbed it. He made it really super cute. It's got 7 rooms. And he is getting 30% of his money back in the form of tax credits. He just opened in April. That property is consistently booked at almost 100% occupancy, and it's not even in San Juan. It's a block and a half from the beach, and he's getting a bunch of money back in his pocket. So that's very powerful. You need at least 7 rooms to qualify for that tax credit or any tourist type project, including services. Other Puerto Rico tax incentives, 98% of Puerto Rico is zoned opportunity zone. You've heard Beth mention opportunity zones. This is a very powerful tax incentive. It, in my opinion, is better than a 1031. It allows you to defer capital gains, current capital gains you have from, in my case, California, or from selling a stock, selling a business somewhere in the mainland, doesn't matter. You can invest in an opportunity zone project and defer those taxes for 5 years. The real kicker is all of the growth and gain on that asset over the next 10 years is completely tax-free. No taxes when you go to sell. You do have to hold it for 10 years. You also get to deduct depreciation every year on your taxes. You have a non-cash item to offset your income, but you never have to pay that depreciation back or get taxed on it when you sell that asset. There's also a little bonus 10% step up in basis, which will also help you in your taxes. And Puerto Rico is the only place where you can own beachfront opportunity zone property, at least as far as I know. Go to the next page here. More hospitality stuff. As some of you know, I used to do Airbnb in Santa Monica, in Los Angeles, in Malibu. And many cities in the mainland have banned short-term rentals. And Los Angeles and Santa Monica are two that ban them. Santa Monica extremely aggressive in their crackdown of illegal Airbnbs. Puerto Rico is tourism friendly. There's a mere 7% short-term rental tax. You do not need a license. You just need an innkeeper ID. And a law was passed just in August, not even a year old, 129-2020, which says that unless the master deed or bylaws expressly prohibit it, you cannot ban short-term rentals in condo projects. So that's pretty cool. Here is a sample case study. This is a project I have under contract. It's a 4-unit multifamily. It's in Santurce near La Placita. They're all 2+1 units. Purchasing it for $550 with 20% down. I'm purchasing it with a partner, a credit partner who's getting, that said, I love debt, and having long-term debt at a low interest rate for 30 years while prices are going up and rents are going up and Airbnb rental costs are, you're able to charge more. Imagine in 5 or 10 years having a P&I payment of just $1976 or under $2,000. Your average daily rate on this project, about $150 a night. So a gross income, roughly $12K. Of course, you've got expenses, supplies, insurance, maintenance, and housekeeping, and other things. You've got to furnish them, but we're going to do this as an Airbnb play with someone who has a job and can get a loan, which I would struggle to qualify for because I'm self-employed. So lastly, I'm looking for credit and equity partners. Here's a couple photos from the recent trip. We're out snorkeling, we're under a waterfall. This is my contact information. And I think I'll pause the share. Stop share. Okay. So that's it. I wanted to do it in 15 minutes. I hope I got through it.
Oh my gosh. It's like learning through a fire hose. I just want to make sure that some of the people understand, some of the things that you said, because you went through some of them kind of quickly. One is that, is about opportunity zones. And Carol is asking that you put your contact information back up, or maybe you would put it in the chat so that everybody can copy and paste it.
Yeah.
So opportunity zones in the States have been designated and are, really kind of areas where there is some depressed areas that you need to go into and revive. Puerto Rico is not a state of depression, just so you know, just so that everybody knows, but 97%, 98% of it has been designated an opportunity zone. Opportunity zone funds are an amazing way to defer any kind of tax issues with any capital gains that you might be getting. So there are several people whose play in Puerto Rico is to take the money of any kind of capital gains. If you guys know how the housing market is right now. You sell one of your properties and you've got a capital gains on it that you have to figure out how to reinvest so you can 1031 exchange it, right? Or you could 1031 exchange it into an opportunity zone in Puerto Rico and mitigate all your tax liabilities within several years. I think it's a 5 to 10 year play. True, Catherine?
You defer your current capital gains for 5 years, then you do need to write that check to the IRS and pay those capital gains. But because of the 10% step up in basis, they'll be less than what they were if you just wrote the check. Plus 5 years time value of money, so you get that. But the real key is that you hold the property for a full 10 years. So you're going to write that check in year 5, but then when you sell that property 10 years from now, you don't owe the IRS anything, not one penny.
Right.
So if it grows up 10 times, now you've made all of that spread without having to pay any tax on it.
So it's my understanding that at year 10, your property gets a step up basis. And basically that's why you don't owe any taxes at the end of it.
My understanding is you get the step up basis for at the 5-year point, you can utilize that. So you're not going to have to pay tax on the full amount that you would have had to pay if you'd written the check, because you've got a step-up basis. The check that you're writing is based on roughly 90%. But I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. Take this with a grain of salt, do your own due diligence.
I think the long and short of it is that there's some remarkable opportunity in Puerto Rico, and it's a beautiful island, tropical island. And I just want to go back to one other thing that you said, because I just want to make sure that our women really hear this. If you bring a business to Puerto Rico, you have a 4% tax. Hello, how many of us are running businesses in Los Angeles or California or some other more expensive state? And right now I was just reading about some of the tax laws that say that we're going to be paying 17% tax in California soon. I'm like, wow, 4%.
Right. And you're paying 17% in California, plus you're paying your 35%, depending on your tax bracket, 28%, whatever that is. So you're maybe in the 50% of your money is going towards taxes. In Puerto Rico, maybe 4%. If you have a business, I don't have a business, I pay 0 tax. All of my income is structured to be interest and dividend and cap gain income, crypto, whatever. All of my income is tax free.
Oh, I'm dying. You're killing me. You're killing me. Yeah. I'm sorry. You should see the faces. I'm going to go gallery setting, because you got to see the faces. Some of the faces are like, what? She's paying 0% taxes? I mean,
people get off the plane. Every day I meet new people. I'm at 50 platinum partner. Well, I didn't meet them, but I know that 50 of them showed up within the last 2 weeks from the Tony Robbins group, because they ran the numbers and came en masse to Puerto Rico. And I wish I got a commission on telling people to move to Puerto Rico, because so many of them that I've met have decided to move here. It's pretty funny, but I don't get any bump other than having more friends in my local network to go out and have mojitos with. So please come to Puerto Rico, hang out. And if you want to just do a project, I will try to help you in setting up an Airbnb that you can come and visit and be in Puerto Rico and have a property that's, I think, going to appreciate, in a market that has barely touched on the amount of tourism that they should be able to get in the future.
Well, thank you for being with us today. And can we get some love in the chat for Catherine for sharing all this information? She put her information in the chat. Anybody wants to get in touch with her offline, please feel free. And thank you once again, Catherine, for joining us this evening. I know it's later there. And so, I really appreciate you staying up late for us.